absolutely. Great.
Okay. Well, my name is Sarah. I am a marine biology, and I have my master's degree recently, as of I think this month officially, from University of British Columbia. But I'll do that soon. And yes, I've been doing marine biology, and I'm also a painter. So I also do wildlife art with Artists for Conservation. So
Very good.
society to get some good painting, and part of the proceeds goes to the animals that are the subject matter. So if you've never heard of it, a good thing to check out.
Brilliant.
Yeah. But yeah, I wanted to ask you guys first, why are you interested in the ocean? What made you decide to talk to a marine biologist today?
So Adam, what do you like about what interests you about the ocean and that?
Like how long is the ocean is gonna live? Like all the sea creatures.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so we've been we had another talk from Matt, wasn't it?
Matt.
From Matt about in the Caribbean Sea, and it was really, really interesting. And we live here in Cork in Ireland, and we live about 5 kilometers away from the sea. And we're in a town as well as the tide comes in so fast that within about 30 minutes the tide stretches the whole 5 kilometers. So so when the tide is out, we're actually about 8 kilometers from the sea, and when the tide is in, we're only about 2 or 3 kilometers away. So it's our town is very much affected by the coast and that. When I was a kid as well, and I'm trying to drag Adam down the beach as much as possible, I lived right on the coast as well. So I've been bringing Adam down the beach as much as I can, and
love it.
Throwing him into the really cold water here, and he's very brave. And we want him to know more about the sea isn't just for what swimming in.
Throwing people in.
And throw people in, you especially. Yeah.
I'll die. That's why I'm just throwing someone in.
Well, you're so lucky because I grew up, this is a photo of me when I was a bit younger than you, but I grew up very far from the ocean. So I'm in the center of Canada in Ontario, and very, very is where I grew up. But eventually I moved out to the east coast of Canada, where I did work on the longfin pilot whales in northern Cape Breton. And then this past 2.5, 3 years, I've been working on Gentoo penguins on the west coast of Canada. But Canada, of course, doesn't have penguins. So my field work, I traveled down to a subantarctic island where I camped there for 3 weeks in April. And then again for another 6 weeks in October, November time. So yeah, that's kind of how I became, I guess, a marine biologist. So lots of studying in school and stuff. So do you have any, what do you know about penguins? Because that'll be kind of a main topic of today.
Absolutely. So I was saying, we spent a lot of time looking up the penguins. What we watched today as well, March of the Penguins as well.
Yeah.
You'd be glad to know we didn't watch Happy Feet. We didn't think that would be too appropriate. And what else did we do? And we were looking up Emperor penguins, King penguins, and the third biggest are?
Yeah. Bengal penguins.
Exactly, they're the third biggest penguin, aren't they?
Yep. Yeah, they are.
And we were, exactly. And we have penguins here in, actually, you know what, we have penguins in Fota Zoo. That's a kind of a wildlife park, very close to here, actually. And
sometimes it's very hot there.
Yeah, it's really, really hot. I feel very sorry for the penguins. They look really hot there.
Put some cream on them.
Yeah, exactly.
A shower.
Yeah. So yeah,
Well, I have a bit of a game for you before we talk about the different types of penguins. So you're going to jump right in and be a marine biologist today. So I wanted you to tell me what's different or what you see that's special about this video. Let me know if the audio.
What's weird about that?
Did you see anything funny?
So the quality is not great. It's kind of moving only every maybe 3-4 seconds. It moves on to a new frame. So it's like yeah. But what happened up the top?
It was like there's like some splashes,
Yeah.
and I didn't know really why they're making so much splashes that like in the middle.
And they all dived out of the water, didn't they?
Yeah,
Maybe they were running away from something or swimming away from something.
maybe like a whale.
Could be. Killer whale.
Yeah, it could be. There's lots of stuff.
That's an orchid.
So look.
Turn down the volume a bit. But if I pause it right here, can you guys see in the bottom corner here that there's a number on the penguin?
Hey, yeah. There's for you.
Yep. This one's
Oh, the little tags, is it?
Yep.
Can
So
you
these
zoom in?
penguins that were involved in my research study. And then if you keep watching the video for a sec, there's another one. This is number.
Yeah. Number 50. Did you see it there? Look, he's number 59. He's like wearing a t-shirt.
So I spent days and days staring at penguins in huge groups, and they stormed the beach in so many individuals.
How do you tell if?
Listen to her. Listen to her. She's playing.
No, go ahead. Ask your question. How do I tell?
How do you tell if a penguin is a boy or a girl?
You can't. Isn't that crazy? You have to do some blood work. There is no visible difference. I know. It would be much easier if we could. It would make my job.
There is one way. Look at the egg.
Well, how do you know? How if they're already out of the egg?
Good point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Girls wear lipstick. Got that.
But I assume you have seen the movie Happy Feet before, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how many different types of penguins do you think are in Happy Feet? They're all in this photo here. So how many different types of penguins do you think you can see?
1,000.
So how many different types though? So look, he's different because he's got the big frills.
Emperor penguin.
He's really big.
Yeah.
And he's only a chick and he's really big. So that's two different types, 3 different types. They look bigger than them, so maybe that's 4, maybe that's 5. But how many different types of penguin do you think there are?
10.
Who knows?
There's 3.
3.
So emperor penguins, like you said, and then you can see the coloration of the chick, and that kind of matches Mumble over here. And then you have the Adelie penguins with their black heads, and then rockhopper penguins have those crazy head feathers. Yeah, so now when you watch the movie, you can be like, that's an Adelie penguin, and that's a rockhopper penguin. And you can feel like a marine biologist because you know the species of penguins now. Yeah. So this is something called an evolutionary tree because everything's connected and they kind of branch out from each other. So penguins evolved tens of millions of years ago, and they were really, really big at first, and now they've kind of grown to be medium-sized. But basically, there's arguably around 18 different species of penguins, and they're all here on this side here. And furthermore, you can divide animals into who their closest relatives are. So this is something called genre. So it's other groups. So it's kind of who their species cousins are. And you can see that up here at the top, it's kind of behind our videos, but Adelie penguins are in that first group. Then the red over here, that's where you have the king and emperor penguins. So like we just saw in Happy Feet with Momo. And then the crested penguins, like the northern rockhopper penguins, are down here in this yellow group. So they're the largest group of penguin species, which is pretty cool. So there's a lot of penguins with those feathers on their heads, but the emperor penguin's still the most famous.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And is it true there's penguins are only in the southern hemisphere? Is that or are there any native penguins to the northern hemisphere?
No, there's not. And it's one unique thing about Antarctica is that there's really not many land animals there. So that makes their nests safe when they have nests on the ground and stuff. Because if there was, you know, dogs or wolves or these kind of other like mammal predators or polar bears, they'd have a lot harder time surviving, because for penguins, land means safety. There's not really much that can harm them there. Yeah, it's just in the ocean that they really have to worry about seals and stuff, which is crazy because even on our beaches, you can see different seals that would eat penguins in the water. They just kind of hang out on land, and it's kind of crazy. So yeah, but some penguins are at risk. Their populations are a bit endangered. And this is true with seabird species in general because they have a bit more fragile habitat, but especially for penguins who are spending a lot of time in the ocean and really reliant on those marine food resources that can be very hard to find. So the ocean's such a huge place. How do they find their food? So it's a big question, and there's a lot of things that humans have done in recent decades that makes their job a little harder. So most of the penguin species are threatened. But today we're going to talk about Gentoo penguins. It's kind of at the top corner there. I already noted one of my fun facts here that Gentoo penguins are the third largest. So good on you. But they can also dive deeper than 200 meters, which is so far down for a little penguin who's just holding his breath and then diving into the water. And they're also the fastest out of all the penguin species, even though there's others that are larger. And with Gentoo penguins, they're not migratory, so they kind of are more homebodies of penguins. So they don't go too far from their colony year round, whereas other penguins can go very, very far. And they live to be about 20 years old, and they produce 2 chicks a year. So Gentoo penguins typically have like twin eggs each year.
2 kids every year. Hard work, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, glad you know it.
It is hard work, yeah. So if we go about their annual cycle of penguins, they lay their eggs and they have to sit on their eggs for about a month. It's like 34 days. And then they spend so much time taking care of their baby chicks. So these guys are pretty cute. Then when the chick
like you're hugging.
are hugging, it's because it's really cold. It's quite chilly where they are. So they have to snuggle up and keep warm. Then when they get just a bit smaller than the adults, they then they do something really funny. So you grow your hair all the time, right? You have to get haircuts?
Yeah.
So penguins don't. They only grow their feathers for a few weeks each year. And then those feathers are all they have to keep them warm for the next whole year. So when they're regrowing their feathers and shedding them in these little puffy tufts, they can't go in the water. So they have to fast on land where they don't eat. Yeah. So all of this time from October to about April, penguins are spending more time on land to take care of their chicks and to make sure eggs are warm. And also they have to molt their feathers. So it is hard work raising baby penguins. And then you have to do some self-care and, you know, make sure you're looking sharp. So basically after at the beginning of winter, penguins really need to eat a lot of food and take care of their own condition, and they increase their fat reserves so that they're healthy to lay eggs again the following season. And then it just repeats. So what I was most interested in was learning what penguins do when they spend most of their time not on land during April to October.
I assume well, how long can a penguin spend off land for any kind of a, can they, let's say,
a good question. Yeah. So Gentoo penguins are thought to just make day trips from sea. So they leave right before sunrise, and then they always kind of return by sundusk, and then they sleep on land. But I'll show you something interesting about that a bit later. Lots of other penguin species are known that they can sleep out at land. They kind of just raft at the surface and they can take a little bit of a nap, and they can be at it can be at sea for quite a while. So this is the Falkland Islands. This is where I did my field research. It's a sub-Antarctic island, way at the south.
I just explained the globe to him. So that's right at the bottom of planet Earth. Do you remember we talked about?
There's no bottom of
Antarctica.
planet Earth.
Oh yeah, I was telling him there is no, in space there is no top or bottom, but yeah. That's Antarctica, the most southerly point.
It's also the top.
But it's all ice. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is where they live.
And this is a bit complicated, but basically the colony on the Falkland Islands, this is kind of a zoomed up square. There's something called the polar front, which cuts off the Falkland Islands from all the other pieces of Antarctica. So it means that the Gentoo penguins on the Falkland Islands are a bit bigger, and they don't breed, they don't mix colonies with the other islands. So they're genetically different. So they may be a new subspecies eventually, but there's a lot of research coming out on their genetics, which is a pretty cool little side fact.
Cool.
But yeah, so this is the Falkland Islands. So when we went down, you had to take a tiny, tiny airplane. So this is us with our April field crew from Port Stanley. They're one town of about 2,000 people, and then we flew over to our two separate colonies where we tagged penguins. And this is us camping at the beach. So there's no snow, but there's just so much wind and lots of long grass. So we had to try and tuck our tents into the grass as much as possible so they didn't get blown away, because it's so windy. There's not even trees that grow. There's no trees on the whole island that are native.
Nice.
Yeah. So definitely an intense.
How long did you spend there?
This is the Falkland Islands, and I was there for 3 weeks and then 6 weeks on the second trip. Yeah. Oh. So these are the 5 different species that you can see in the Falkland Islands. And can you tell me which 2 species are in the same genus? Which 2 look most alike? Because there's only 4.
Those 2.
The 2 at the end?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, exactly. So those are crested penguins. So on the far right, that's a rockhopper penguin, similar to what's in Happy Feet. And then this is a macaroni penguin. And you can tell that they're kind of different because they have
exactly. I told you penguins are penguins.
What's the tastiest penguin?
I told him I was that.
But we can ask the seals.
That's the seals, exactly. Keep in there, keep moving.
Crested penguins here, they live on rocks. But then the Magellanic penguin, he's carrying a bunch of sticks because they actually live in burrows. So they dig holes in the ground and then they gather up all this grass.
They have claws on their hands.
Yeah, they pick all the grass and then they line their nest underneath the ground with it. So that's pretty crazy. And then
a penguin claws.
Oh, why not? His claws on his feet.
Yep.
Digging into the ground.
Yeah, they do. They just kick the sand back. Kick the dirt. Then we have king penguins, which are huge and they're so majestic. They weren't supposed to be on our island, but we saw one come up on the beach and hang out for a little bit and then turn around and he left, but they nest on the sand. And then the Gentoo penguins nest on a plant called diddledee. It's called a diddledee bush, and they make berries and you can eat jam of the diddledee bush. and it is delicious. Never ate a penguin, but the jam made from their homemade.
Yeah. Penguin jam is entirely different.
But why don't penguins freeze?
They don't, because they have so many feathers to keep them nice and toasty warm.
I was asking, why don't their feet freeze?
Oh, their feet do get very cold, but they can actually control their blood flow to stop blood flow going from their flippers and their feet to some degree. So they can prioritize keeping their core of their body warm over their feet when they're out in freezing water and stuff.
Yeah, and you can send warm blood down then as well.
Yeah.
To the feet, keeping them
Now we understand.
nice and toasty.
Yeah. But these are some other photos I took on the islands. So over here we have a nursing sea lion mom, and sea lions were the number one, we'll say, disturbance of the penguins coming onto shore. There's a lot of National Geographic moments that we witnessed in person with the sea lions. But then we also have orcas and lots of different types. And these are a bunch of birds that we also saw. So on Falkland Islands, seabirds and marine mammals are the main, animals that you get to see there. And it's quite amazing just having this rugged landscape. And this bird, as you can see in my photo here, this is called a caracara. They swoop in and they try and steal everything. And they are very large.
Hats.
So they're nerve-wracking sometimes. Yeah, sometimes they come and they could maybe try and get your hat. You particularly.
But is that one what above it as well? Is that the caracara on the top right also?
This one?
No, the one above it.
This one. No, these are shags.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, lots of different bird species. But yeah, so our main question is, where do penguins go when they're at sea, and what do they do? So how do you think we could find out what they do when they're at sea if we can't see them?
How do you think you could do that?
Swim.
You could swim after them, but they're really, really fast.
Yeah.
Maybe to put a little tracker on them, maybe? If you tag a little
camera.
Maybe you could attach a little camera.
A sea camera.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, the sea cameras would be very cool. They are quite expensive. But basically, what are some of your favorite foods? So some favorite foods.
What are your favorite foods?
Okay, chicken curry and rice and garlic chicken and Weetabix. And sash.
So favorite foods of Gentoo penguins are fish, squid, and krill species. So unlike other penguin species, they eat a wide variety of stuff. They're very opportunistic depending on what they can catch. So the interesting thing about Gentoo penguins when you're studying them is that they're all doing different things because they all like different food. So variation, if you want to mean variation in where they go and how deep they go when they're diving for their food. So even though they can dive up to 200 meters, they don't do that on every dive. There's a lot of variation. So we
I was going to ask, since they're one of the fastest, or they are the fastest, and they can dive to such depths, how have they got around, let's say, the bends, or do they need to raise up slowly, or can they shoot straight up?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a lot of research being done on how to track partial oxygen and the concentration of things in blood of animals. But they do, there's evidence in...
Mom, come here. Tell Mom this.
Come here. We've got another one. Oh, you come.
Yay!
And this is Ashleen. Look. Say hi to Sarah.
Hi.
She's talking all about penguins, and look what they have on the back of the penguin.
This is how they're going to see.
This is how they see where penguins go.
Mm-hmm.
But how deep do penguins dive?
They can dive over 200 meters.
Wow.
Yeah. Ocean's about 1 meter tall. Imagine 200 oceans that deep.
Wow.
So deep, yeah. So we have two different tags here. The first is a satellite tag, animal. So that is supposed to get live. And then on the so this tag records every second. So every single second, it's like I am at 10 meters, I'm at 12 meters, I'm at 20 meters as it's swimming down, and then all the way when it's back up as well. So the time depth recorders, we have to get back off the penguin. And you can see here, all that's holding these tags on is just a super sticky tape and glue on the seams so that we can remove them without disturbing the feathers too much. Yeah, and then this stencil just comes off. So after we tag the penguins, which just lasts a couple minutes, then they wander off to go back to the rest of the colony. So this is a quick animation. I won't play all of it, but it shows how the satellite tags ping and they get received by satellites that pass overhead. So here's a polar bear with a satellite tag on, the Argos tag, I should say. So satellites collect all the information from all the different types of tags on animals. And see, this is what our penguins would look at with the antenna popping up out of the water. And then they drop it off at receivers that then translate the information for us.
Oh, brilliant. So they're all being tracked by what, satellites? Imagine it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at a sat.
Yeah. Penguins connected to satellites.
So how many
Like robot penguins.
here? How many different colors?
Sorry, it got kind of broken up there. What was the last bit?
Different colors can you see?
Different color dots.
5.
5, exactly. So this was actually kind of sad for me because I had tagged over 60 penguins and slowly they fell off. So I spent a whole summer every day waking up, rushing to my email, looking at where my penguins were and watching them slowly fall off over time. So you'll see it happen. These are the 5 that stayed on the longest for the purpose of the animation. But how many tags can you see now that we're into August?
How many colors are there now?
3.
And now?
2. 1.
Oh no.
Oh,
Yep, and that one fell off.
Gone. You have to search for them. More hours Steph falls in the sea, the worse it gets.
Yeah, so we had heard nothing from our penguins for about 2 months before we went back out to the Falkland Islands, hoping that some of the time depth recorders were still on. So when we got there, we had to search throughout the colony with binoculars and try and see if any of our tags still were on the penguins. And the colony is hundreds of penguins. We searched and we searched, and very thankfully I found some. Yeah.
Find all of them. Try harder.
Oh, do you see it there, like?
Yeah, so you can see the satellite tag is right above it, but now there's just nice, clean feathers, and then our time depth recorder is still attached on the bottom. So, yay.
Brilliant. So how many did you find out of the, what was it, 60 originally?
Yeah, 60, and I got 19 back.
Oh, that's all right. And is it that some would have just simply, I presume they wouldn't sink. I presume they're designed to float. So do you think, is it just the penguins just became lunch?
No, I don't. I think because a lot of them did fall off, and we saw a lot of the penguins. I think we saw about 40 of our penguins, just without, we could still see because the markings that we put on them, they were. So it's just the tags that are falling off. It's tape. You could secure them with more stuff, but it'd be a little bit more harmful to their feathers, and we don't want to do any damage. They only reproduce. So yeah, so it's tricky, and it's the satellite or the time depth recorders, the tags that made it are about the size of your pinky finger. They're super small, whereas the satellite Argos tags are about twice as wide. So that's probably, they're just a bit larger, so they had more chance for the seawater to get in beside the tape. Yeah, so this is one of the penguins. So they go all the way down to the bottom, and then we can get information like the bottom time of their dive. So how long they spend down where prey is most likely to be. Then,
so that he went down, when he gets down to the very end, it's after 5 minutes, and he starts going back up then after about 8 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah. And he's underwater for about 10 minutes. Imagine it, holding your breath for 10 minutes underwater.
Is that longer than you?
They're nearly as long as I can do it. Nearly, yeah.
I get a great competition. Bring a penguin over here and we'll have a contest.
We have a kind of a family joke. I'm a really bad swimmer, so I've kind of taught myself to swim underwater, and I can do full lengths just holding my breath because I'm just so crap at the top. So they always joke about how long I can, how far I can go underwater.
And studying too. So I look at their dive efficiency. So how can they maximize the time at the bottom of their dive to the time that they have to spend at the surface catching their breath and traveling down to where the prey is. So that's one cool thing you can learn from time depth recorders. So this is just the last month of data, about August and September, of the penguins, of 19 of them. So they dove so much, and it's not separated out by individuals, but you can see that they did a lot of foraging at around 60 meters, but they also did a lot of deep foraging at around 150 meters, which is pretty cool. And if you remember, individual diet is kind of like reflecting their diving behavior. So we can kind of look from different prey surveys where you're most likely to find the different animals that the penguins are eating. So if you only diving to 150 meters, he's probably after, larger species of squid and fish, whereas the shallow dives, they're after more krill, those little tiny crustaceans that are so important to so many different animals in the Antarctic.
Very good. What size kind of squid would a gecko penguin be after? I mean, squid can be quite large. So what, in say relation to the penguin body size, what kind of size squid would it be able to eat?
Oh, that's a good question. So not any bigger than their size. They still have to be able to swallow
fit it in, exactly.
There'd be kind of like that kind of
be like corn is squid. They'll be like all packed.
Be packed. A giant squid. Imagine the size of the penguin then.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of belly, a pop.
The whales. But yeah, and then the last thing we did is we wanted to see how different types of penguins eating different things and doing different things during the winter, because they're gaining energy differently, how this impacts if the timing of when they're able to breed, when they're able to come and lay their eggs, as it's kind of better to do it earlier in the season so that your chicks are bigger when the next winter hits. So we looked at all these things and to kind of gauge how the penguins were doing on their reproductive status. So after we got our takes back, we watched them through binoculars for weeks and weeks, waiting for them to lay their eggs. So this is what an advertising call is. And I have a video, so you'll hear it in a second. And then they also, if they get too close, they kind of knock each other back with their very, very strong flippers, which when you're handling the penguins, you have to be very, very careful of. So you definitely want to be an expert when you have to interact with them in close quarters. But of course, best to leave wildlife. But yeah, and then they also bow to each other for pair bonding. So after they're at their nest, you'll see the penguins constantly bow to their partner, which is very, very funny and sweet. And then they build their nests. So Gentoo penguins use sticks from the diddle-dee bushes. And you can see this penguin, he did this for probably about 2 hours while we were watching the colony. And this penguin is almost entirely buried in sticks because they haven't got off. They're probably incubating eggs in this photo. So there's so much sticks all around the penguin. He's almost completely buried. It was quite amusing to watch. But yeah, so there are so many hundreds of penguins in a colony. It's really hard to kind of keep track of who's who. So we create maps of our different individuals to try and see where they are in the colony. So you can see them kind of here and in the photo.
How do you see?
So look, so if that was the whole, let's say, penguin colony, did you see, look, they mark out exactly where each one is. So do you see that they've got 50 written on that penguin?
Yeah.
So he'd be just on the edge of the penguin colony. Colony is like the big group of them. So,
And they're
and look,
56.
and he's more in kind of the middle, isn't he?
Yeah.
So that's why, look, that's where they map him out. When they draw it out, he's in, say, the middle. And you can see 56 is sitting on 2 eggs. Well, 50 doesn't have any yet. Yeah,
Yep.
Just so they can track exactly.
But where's 40? And this?
Oh, 40's probably over there somewhere. Look, he's kind of, 40 will be over there somewhere.
Yep. And then a video of penguin 62 because they're also near on the edge. So I'll show you that now, and then you can see some of these behaviors.
Yeah. That's the mommy. Daddy penguin now.
Oh, yes, this is where I Oh, and it only takes a few minutes. It's very quick.
Yeah. You'd be the same as if I had to
there's
write
lots of
52 on you, you wouldn't let me have to pin you down and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was going to your wedding, I was like, when I went to get away from putting on my nappy.
You were, I know.
You had to call some of your friends to pin me down.
I did, actually, I did, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But how many? 4, 2?
I can't remember. Yeah, that was the same. When we were trying to get your nappy on, when you were a kid, we had to chase you around and somebody had to hold you. And we had to do it, so probably the same way they do penguins.
When they have the band on the flippers, they have the band on the flippers of the penguins at different zoos so that they can tell who's who. Have you seen those? So they used to do that with wild animals, but then there was a couple different studies that found that they make them a bit slower swimming because of the extra drag. Mm-hmm. So this is currently the best method that scientists have to identify individuals, but obviously it's not as permanent as the flipper band. So that's why it's a little trickier to find them again. But it's better for the penguins to do this way because it doesn't affect their swimming at all. They're still very, very quick in the water. Yeah, and when it fades in a few more days from this photo, it doesn't really affect their coloration again because it's not this strikingly off of the white. So, yeah.
But you said,
but this is.
Sorry, they molt every year anyway, don't they?
Yeah, they molt every year. Yeah. So by April, it would be completely clean and white anyway. Yeah. But in a few months, regardless if they molted their feathers, you can barely see it. So yeah, it was pretty tricky. We mostly found penguins by the tags on their back because the numbers were almost entirely gone after the time. But yeah, so this is a cool story behind this photo because we were at the colony watching for eggs and we saw 58 come up from sea and walk into the colony. This is his mate. I know 58's a boy now from his blood work, but it was so cool to see him go over to his nest and they kind of bowed while his was still sitting on the nest. And then there's only one egg here because she just laid that this afternoon. This was the second day we ever saw any eggs in the colony. So we'd only seen about a handful. And it was so fun that one of the penguins involved in the study laid so early on. It was really great to see. So this is the first time this penguin is looking at his egg, like absolutely for sure. So it was pretty fun.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And did the penguin lay the egg that's unusually early, or was it kind of at the start of the egg laying season, however? So
yeah, actually, all of the penguins were delayed about a week and a half. So we didn't get to see all our penguins lay eggs. We kind of had to go off of whether they had an nest or not for the research, because we were trying to get lay date for everybody, but not everybody had laid eggs before we had a flight back to Canada. So yeah, but quite a few penguins, probably about a third in the colony, had laid by the time we had to leave. So yeah, but this is another penguins.
Okay,
they're bowing at each other with, and you can see. Yeah. So maybe someday I'll go back and be able to watch penguin chick.
Just how fast do the penguins swim?
They swim about 35 kilometers an hour. So fast.
that's how do I describe that? That's about as fast as me when I'm cycling my bike.
As fast as me.
That's very fast for a swimmer.
Yeah.
And is it true? I read before that a penguin swimming is technically the same as flying. It's literally as flying in kind of water.
Yeah, basically, yeah. They it's a movement that they do with their wings. It's just so quick and speedy.
Penguins can't fly.
Well, it's the same as the way a bird flies. They can actually fly in water. That's the way they swim. Yeah.
I think I'm a penguin because once when I was in Centre Parks, I skied. Like a penguin will jump.
Oh yeah, you saw the penguin sliding. It's true. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So do you guys have any other questions?
Like a penguin. I was going so fast I skied on like a rock.
Yeah.
Like a skimming rock. It's like a penguin jumping up and down in the water. Part penguin, a man.
Sorry.
No, good. Do you have any more penguin-related questions? Or marine biology-related questions?
Yeah, he has a few. You have a few questions there. So what did we do? What about the last one there?
Have you been ever swimming with penguins?
I have not. We thought about it. But
Yes, so.
it was around 0 degrees.
Listen to your answer now.
Sometimes it would hail, It's a little chilly for us to go swimming.
It's very cold water down there, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it wouldn't be the nicest. The penguins have lots of feathers and lots of, remember the kind of the fat?
Yeah.
So they can stay warm. Plus, they're really, really fast swimming. So I'd say if you all jumped in the water at the same time, penguins would be gone.
Yep. But I know there are other researchers down there who had been scuba diving near different seal colonies and penguin colonies. And so you can see them underwater. They do zip around. So, but scuba diving with a nice, warm, toasty wetsuit would be the way to do it. For sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. What's another question you got?
Very good. What else have we? Oh, yes. What threatens?
What threatens a penguin?
Penguins, exactly.
Yeah, so commercial fishing is pretty big. So in Antarctica and kind of the surrounding waters, it's outside.
Some birds.
Yeah, it's outside of boundaries of different countries. So there's a lot of different measures in place right now that are trying to be put in to protect kind of open ocean fisheries. So those are really good and would help penguins. There's also different oil exploration that's happening in the area. But climate change, the temperatures getting warmer is is another big one, because when you get warmer air, even by a few degrees, it holds a lot of moisture. And so one issue that they've been having at penguin colonies is that the penguins can't really move when they're off their nest. So if there's a big snowfall on penguins who have just laid eggs, they're really stuck there trying to keep their egg warm. And, you know, it can be really hard if there's a lot of snow creeping up on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So imagine that the penguins are there on their nests trying to keep their eggs warm. It's a really huge amount of snow landing around them. They can't keep it, because if they moved, their poor eggs would get frozen.
Ah.
See, yeah. Poor things. I read it. It's an odd one. The amount of oxygen that a penguin embryo uses apparently is really, really high. But what that got me thinking, can the oxygen pass through the eggshell, or how does it work, or do you know?
Yeah. So you do have some amount of like transfusion between eggshells and stuff. It's kind of how if you have an egg, you can marinate eggs in different things, and part of it'll kind of get absorbed, I think. But
really? We definitely have to try that.
Yeah, of course.
So
Yeah.
if we put, let's say, an egg into food coloring, I hadn't realized that the eggshell was actually porous.
I would not classify myself an egg absorption expert by any means.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know what happens. So.
Oh, very good, very good. And have you any other questions, Ash?
Yeah, is that one?
Mm-hmm.
How long can penguins' flippers grow up to?
How long can the flippers grow to?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good question. We measured their flipper length. I'm trying to think back to my my data to figure out how long. But a penguin flipper is about, I don't know, probably about the length from your pinky finger to your thumb. That's how long their flippers would kind of be.
Wow.
That's big for a flipper.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they are
It's
so
actually quite
very
small.
Well, for the size of the penguin, it's big. It's big for a small penguin, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
But depends on the penguin.
Depends.
Yes. So if you're a bigger penguin, you'd have longer flippers.
Very good. So how did you get into penguins? If you said it was Ontario, you're from originally, is it?
Yep.
And then you moved to East Coast. Did you go to the East Coast to study marine biology, or did you go there and then discover that's what you wanted to do?
No, I'd been studying, like watching nature films and stuff on the ocean for years, and I wanted to do work on whales. So I went out to Halifax, Nova Scotia, specifically because I knew they had a marine biology degree program. So I was there for my undergrad, and then I got into the cetacean lab. Cetacean's a word for whales and dolphins. And so I did a lot of work with longfin pilot whales there. But to do, your graduate degree work in marine mammals, it's quite competitive. And I had a supervisor who just opened a lab at the University of British Columbia, Marie. And so I pretty much jumped gear away from marine mammals specifically to work with her. And penguins was the project, and it sounded super cool. And at the end of the day, there's so many transferable skills in research. So I'm not sure what animal I would study next. For the next little bit, I'm going to be doing some painting, taking a break from writing papers and statistics for a little while. But yeah, it creates a lot of really unique opportunities to just stay open to what different adventures are going to kind of come your way and what you hear about so you kind of have to really be adaptable to jump on different opportunities as they come up. And yeah, and it was great.
Brilliant. Can you put up that, what was it, the Weebly link again?
Oh, yeah, sure.
So that's like on a website. It's on the internet where I might see loads of her paintings, so we can check them out later. Yeah. Here, sit up. See the camera down there? That's what they see. So you need to kind of, yeah, come in a bit closer to make sure that you could be seen.
There you go. Can you see it?
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So that's my slightly outdated website, but there's some good stuff on there. I also have a profile on Artists for Conservation, but I'm just starting to add artwork up there. So.
Oh, very, very good.
Yeah.
So Adam, what you think?
Yeah.
Very good.
If you have other questions, feel free to shoot me an email about penguins or anything else.
Fantastic, Sarah. That's been great. Thank you very much.
Great. Yeah.
So when are you off on your next what adventure?
Well, I just defended my master's in February, and currently I'm moved back to Ontario, and we're renovating a house we just bought in Ontario to be a bit closer to family. So I haven't lived near my parents or my siblings in almost 8 years. So yeah, so I'm just catching up with
Oh, fantastic.
Ontario for a little bit and doing some painting, and yeah.
Having a break. Great, very good. Enjoy it, and good luck with the house, and I hope everything goes well.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking part, Grace.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's great.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
That's great.
Bye.
All right.
Thanks a million.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye-bye.